Welcome to Lecture 6, Constructed Reality. We are, let me change that. What we perceive is a constructed illusion. Our brains are actively constructing really what's out there. Our perceptions are filtered and changed. Our memories are constructed and reconstructed. We create these patterns, like I talked about in the last lecture, we create these patterns to actually what we perceive. And we assign meaning to these patterns. When these patterns come into conflict with our higher brain functions, we tend to rationalize, justify why we think this. For example, you're offered this nice slice of berry-covered cheesecake. Part of your brain really wants the cheesecake. Oh, it's good, I want this thing. And part of your brain knows that you shouldn't have this cheesecake because of the unnecessary calories or the unnecessary sugar, whatever it is. And so we start using our logical brain, our frontal lobes, our human part of our brain to rationalize our decision. Well, I didn't eat lunch, so I've saved on the calories, I rationalized my decision. Well, I'll have this cheesecake, but tomorrow I won't eat something else. We do this to rationalize this. I had a really good day, I was so good following my diet, I really deserve this piece of cheesecake. We use our human part of our brain to really rationalize these decisions. And when we come up with a decision, our brain gives us this little reward. Shoots us a shot of dopamine and makes us feel good. Although our decisions seem conscious, very, very few of our decisions are actually conscious decisions. Most of our decisions are unconscious decisions. Then we use our rationalizations to justify our decisions. So we make our decisions unconsciously, and then we use the human part of the brain to say, hey, this is why we did it, even though we started out rationalization. Intuition's a real good example of subconscious decisions. And I don't mean intuition like the psychic sense, but just intuition judging somebody. Intuition that this is a good thing, this is a bad thing. We're making these unconscious decisions. And our decisions can very easily be altered simply by altering our brains. A real good example is cravings. We interpret the symptoms of withdrawal as a craving. Whether that's, in this case, chocolate, or whether alcohol or tobacco or any sort of anything that we have, we interpret these symptoms of withdrawal. I haven't had this for a while as a craving. But damage to a certain part of the brain literally stops cravings. We can hold a strong magnet up against a part of your brain and your craving goes away. Certain areas of your brain, if they get damaged either through a stroke or through an injury, then you lose your cravings. They're just constructions from our brain. It's hard to think about, but even our sense of self is constructed of our brains. Our sense of who we are, this feeling that we are the person behind our eyeballs, is a construction of our brain. We can fool our brains to thinking that we are someplace even outside of our body. Some of you might have done this accidentally. You're playing into some, role-playing game on the computer, and you actually feel like you are that character in the game itself. With virtual reality machines, it's fairly easy to fool the brain to think that you are this other individual out there. You are this computer projection. It's fairly easy. And our brains have an ownership module that we feel we own and control our own bodies. We compare our internal intentions with actually the physical things that occur. My internal intention is to raise my right arm. I look over there, hey, my right arm raised. I own and control this. There's actually a condition called alien hand syndrome. Alien hand syndrome is the syndrome where we've lost that, or I don't understand that my intentions are connected to the movements of my body, or the movements of my hand for the alien hand syndrome. So I see my hand going up and doing something, but I know I'm not thinking, hand, go up and do this thing. So we have this alien hand syndrome. We also have something called the ideomotor effect. The ideomotor effect is our subconscious motor movements. This is how we can use the Ouija board. There is no spirit guiding your hand on the Ouija board. It's the people playing the Ouija board that are guiding it, even though they do not realize they are actually guiding that little movement thing around the Ouija board. The muscles in their back and their arms are moving subconsciously. It's a good example of this is driving. You actually don't think about driving. You don't think about where the gas pedal is and the brake pedal is and all of those motor controls you have. It's why you can actually drive and carry on a conversation, because most of that is done with ideomotor movements. It's your subconscious mind actually doing that driving. Another example is dowsing, where you take the dowsing rod and try and find water or metal or whatever it is you're looking for. There's no force pulling this down going, oh my gosh, there's water here, this is what I'm looking for here. It's your subconscious mind moving these for you, even though it does not feel as though you're actually moving. It doesn't feel, you don't have this conscious control saying, hey, I'm going to do this now. It's subconscious, your ideomotor movements. There was a problem with the ideomotor movements. It caused a lot of problems, was facilitated communication. Some of you may have heard about facilitated communication before. Facilitated communication was the belief that many of these severely impaired individuals could actually communicate, but they simply didn't have the motor skills. And so they would take a keyboard and there would be a trained facilitator there that would take the hand of the individual and understanding the nonverbal communication of this individual, move the individual's hand so they could type out words on a keyboard and actually communicate. And this seemed like a marvelous, marvelous breakthrough with facilitated communication. That these individuals we thought were so incredibly impaired they could not communicate. Well, just simply they didn't have the motor control to communicate. And with a facilitator they were able to communicate. And the facilitators swear up and down they were not moving the person's hand. Turns out after further study, sure enough, the facilitators were actually communicating and not the impaired individual. The facilitators were using their unconscious ideomotor movements. They did not believe they were doing the communication, but in reality, they actually were. Our critical thinking skills are significantly inhibited when we are in the presence of charismatic individuals. This is one of those things that I'm not really sure how, but they've studied it a lot. That when we are in the presence of very, very powerful, charismatic individuals, we lose our critical thinking skills. We lose them and we have a strong tendency to buy into what this other person was saying. I want to share a personal story with you. I go to a lot of motivational seminars. It's one of my things I truly enjoy to do. And I went to this one. This type of motivational seminar is actually called a sales fest in the business, a sales fest. It's where you have several, maybe 8 or 10 or 12 very powerful, very charismatic individuals getting auditoriums full of audience up and shouting and moving around. They're very, very charismatic. And at the end of every presentation, they go to try and sell something. And I tell you, if you go to one of these, leave your credit cards away. Leave your credit cards out of the car, or leave your credit cards at home, because you want the time to actually think about it. If you only have the time from your chair back to the back of the room where they're selling the things, there's a real good chance you're going to buy something you don't want, buy something you don't need, or be conned into spending a whole lot more money than you really think you should spend. A real good sign is when you get offered to go to these seminars and the admissions cost is $10. If you were really going to a very powerful motivational seminar and the whole purpose was to motivate you, you would be spending thousands of dollars. So when you go to one of these motivational seminars, and they're very fun to go to, it's great to watch these motivating speakers, but they're there to sell you something. And they are so charismatic, they convince you that what they're saying is great. I went to one of these one time, and fortunately I was sitting in the third row from the front, and it was about a 15-minute walk to get through the crowds in order to finally make it to the back table. And they were up there, and they were selling, giving their speech, and I'm thinking, wow, this is great. Everything they say is wonderful. This is great. This is great. And I said, I'm going to purchase this. And I got up and I started walking, and fortunately for me, there was a lot of other people around. And I had to wait in this humongous line. But about 10 minutes from my chair, I'm no longer listening to the speakers now. Now I'm thinking in my own thoughts. And now I'm start thinking actually about the validity of purchasing this product. And I'm very glad I had that time, because I did not purchase that product. Later on, I do some research on this, and I find all sorts of negative comments about this product. It's captivating when you're in the presence of a very charismatic individual. You lose your critical thinking skills, and you start believing that what this person says is so incredibly true that you want to be a part of this. You want to be a part of everything that's going on. Excuse me, we lose our critical thinking skills. Humans have very, very poor self-control. You ever tried to stop a bad habit? Know somebody else that tried to stop a bad habit? You're probably pretty aware that we have poor self-control. We are able to make conscious decisions. That's a great thing. We are able to make conscious decisions. Unfortunately, most of our decisions are actually made unconsciously. And then we use our conscious mind to justify or to rationalize the decisions that we just made. This is where we need our critical thinking skills, to be able to realize that, yes, this decision was just made unconsciously. Now let's bring it to the conscious mind and think about it. Is this the true decision to make? And be able to live with, this is a wrong decision, I want to change my mind. This is critical thinking. Be able to evaluate your decisions in accordance to what reality really is. In our next lecture, we're going to be looking at argument and argument structures.